Every civilization believes this time is different. They believe their system is permanent, their economy is stable, and their rules will last forever. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? The idea that we've finally figured it out, that we've built something so robust it can withstand anything. But history has a different story to tell, a much louder, much more consistent story. It says that every single civilization, without exception, eventually reaches a point where the old system can no longer survive. A point where the very foundations begin to crack under their own weight. This isn't because of some shadowy conspiracy or secret meetings in dark rooms. It's simpler and far more fundamental than that. It happens because all systems, no matter how clever, have limits. There's a natural life cycle to power, to economies, to societies themselves. When these systems are pushed beyond their limits, they don't just bend, they break. And what follows is what we can call the Great Reset. It's not a plan hatched by a select few. It's a pattern woven into the very fabric of human history. When we hear the word reset, our minds often jump to images of destruction, chaos, and collapse, a complete wipeout of everything we know. But that's a misunderstanding of what a historical reset actually is. It's not about total annihilation, it's about reorganization. Think of it like a computer that has become slow and bogged down with too many programs running, too many conflicting commands. You don't throw the computer in the trash, you restart it. You clear out the clutter so it can function efficiently again. That's a reset. In the grand scale of civilization, a reset happens when the rules we live by no longer match the reality we live in. When the gap between how things are supposed to work and how they actually work becomes too wide to ignore. This happens for a few key reasons. First, when debt grows faster than trust. When the promises of future payment far exceed the actual ability to produce value. Second, when our systems grow more complex than we can manage. When the bureaucracy, the regulations, the sheer scale of it all becomes a burden rather than a support. And third, when power becomes too concentrated, too far removed from the everyday lives of the people it governs. When that happens, history doesn't politely ask for permission to make a change. It doesn't wait for a vote, it simply adjusts. Reality forces new rules, whether we are ready for them or not. This isn't a new phenomenon. We can look back through the annals of time and see this pattern play out again and again. Take the great ancient civilizations, Mesopotamia, Rome, China. Each one, a titan of its time, believed in its own permanence. And each one experienced its own great reset. Rome is the classic example. The Roman Empire didn't fall in a day. It was a slow, grinding process that spanned centuries. It began not with invading armies at the gates, but with a quiet decay from within. The Roman currency, the denarius, was slowly debased. Emperors would mint coins with less and less silver to pay for wars and lavish projects, eroding its value and the people's trust in it. Over time, trust in the central institutions of the empire collapsed. People stopped believing that the system in Rome could protect them or serve their interests. What happened next? A reorganization. Local systems began to replace central control. People started relying on local leaders, local economies, and local protection. The massive, centralized empire gave way to a decentralized network of smaller kingdoms and manors. This wasn't pure chaos, it was a transition. It was society reorganizing itself into a new structure that was better suited to the new reality. The reset wasn't an event, it was an era of profound change. At the heart of many of these historical resets lies a powerful, often misunderstood force: debt. Now, debt itself is not evil, it's a tool. It allows us to pull future prosperity into the present. It helps us build businesses, buy homes, and fund innovation. It's the grease in the wheels of a modern economy. But there's a critical tipping point when debt consistently grows faster than the productivity of the society that creates it. Resets become not just possible, but inevitable. You can't keep borrowing more and more without producing more and more value to back it up. Eventually, the bill comes due. Interestingly, ancient rulers understood this far better than we often give them credit for. In ancient Mesopotamia, kings would periodically declare clean slates. They would enact debt jubilees, canceling vast amounts of public and private debt. They erased debts, reset land ownership to its original families, and even released people who had been forced into servitude because of their debts. Why would they do this? Was it out of pure generosity? Not really. It was an act of self-preservation. They knew that a society suffocated by unpayable debt would eventually lead to unrest, rebellion, and a complete collapse of the social order. By resetting the debt, they were releasing a pressure valve. They prevented the entire system from exploding. These resets weren't a sign of failure. They were a necessary maintenance mechanism to ensure the long-term survival of their civilization. They chose a controlled reset over an uncontrolled collapse. So we have debt, we have complexity, but there's another crucial element: trust. Money, in its purest form, didn't replace trust, it scaled it. It allowed us to trust and trade with strangers we would never meet. You accept a piece of paper or a number on a screen because you trust that someone else will accept it from you. It's a shared belief system, but large, complex societies need more than just trust in money. They need trust in the institutions that manage the money. They need a belief that the system itself is legitimate and fair. When people stop believing that the system works for them, when they feel the rules are rigged and that a small group is benefiting at the expense of everyone else, the system stops working. It's like a game where everyone decides the referee is biased. The players will start ignoring the rules, they'll challenge the ref, and eventually the game will just fall apart. History shows this pattern with crystal clarity. It's a three-step process. First, trust in the institutions weakens, people become cynical. They lose faith in their leaders, their banks, their government. Second, the rules themselves are questioned. People start asking, why do we do things this way? Who made these rules, and who do they really serve? Finally, the systems themselves are forced to change. This is the real reset. It's not about a new currency or a new technology. It's a fundamental shift in the shared beliefs that hold a society together. It's a reorganization of power, of wealth, and of the very rules of the game. This is the story of how civilizations reboot themselves, and as we'll explore, it's a story that is more relevant today than ever before. Throughout modern history, great resets have reshaped our world. The Industrial Revolution was a reset. The collapse of the gold standard was a reset. The digital age we are living in right now is a reset. But here's the crucial detail: none of these were announced. There was no global press conference, no formal declaration. They simply happened gradually, unfolding over years, sometimes decades. Their true significance, the sheer scale of the change, only became clear in hindsight after the dust had settled. For the people living through them, these periods weren't exciting turning points in a history book. They were times of immense confusion, anxiety, and often fierce resistance. Think about it. A skilled craftsman seeing his life's work made obsolete by a factory machine. A saver watching the value of their money change overnight. A business owner struggling to adapt to a new digital marketplace. The feelings were universal: fear of the unknown, a sense of losing control, a deep-seated resistance to letting go of the old, familiar ways. It's a pattern that feels remarkably similar to the anxieties many of us feel today, doesn't it? So, how do these resets actually play out in real time? It's never a clean, uniform process. Resets are messy and uneven. They create winners and losers. Some groups, institutions, and even nations see their power and influence diminish, while others, often newcomers who are quick to adapt, rise to prominence. But for the vast majority of people, the story isn't one of total victory or total defeat. It's a story of adaptation. They simply learn to navigate the new landscape. If we look back, history teaches us a consistent and unforgiving lesson. Those who take the time to understand the new system, to learn its rules and see the direction of change, suffer far less than those who deny that change is happening, stubbornly clinging to an old reality while a new one is being built all around you is a recipe for being left behind. This is a critical point. Resets don't necessarily reward raw strength, wealth, or established power. They reward awareness. They reward the ability to see the patterns, to connect the dots, and to position yourself for what's coming, not what's already gone. So, what does this mean for you? For me, as individuals living through what feels like another major shift? The first thing to accept is that you cannot stop a reset. It's a force of history, like a tectonic plate shifting beneath our feet. Trying to fight it is like trying to stop the tide from coming in. But that doesn't mean you are powerless. Far from it. Your power lies not in resistance but in your response. You can learn to understand the cycles of history, to see that these periods of upheaval are not anomalies but a natural part of how civilizations evolve. You can actively work to reduce your blind dependence on any single system. This could mean diversifying your skills, your financial strategies, or even your sources of information. And above all, you can cultivate flexibility. Be willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. History is clear on this. While entire civilizations have survived resets, it's the individuals who adapted that survived within those civilizations. This leads to the final, timeless message. The idea of a single, future Great Reset is a distraction. The Great Reset is not coming. It has always been here. It's a continuous process. It is the engine of history, the mechanism that moves society forward when the old rules, the old structures, and the old assumptions no longer serve the present. It's how we progress. Therefore, the question we should be asking isn't will there be a reset, that's a given. The real, far more important question is this: will you recognize it while it's happening? Will you see the pieces moving on the board, or will you only understand the new game after it's already over? If you appreciate history that makes sense of the present, that gives you the tools to see the world more clearly, then follow this channel. We're just getting started. Thanks for watching.